Board games, board games, it's what I'm talking about. Board games, board games, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing. And over there, you'll see there is my wonderful friend and co-designer Tiz. Tiz is an artist and has been for a while. And now maybe today we'll have fun and have a smile. Maybe we'll chat about various stuff. Maybe we're existing, maybe that's enough. What is art? Maybe it's whatever you say. We might or might not talk about that today. We've also been on a show together. It's called Mind Games. We made a game together. Seize the power, and we have known each other for about 2 years. 2 years, yeah, pretty much.
2 years.
Yeah. Board games and Tiz Creel is what we're talking about. Board games and Tiz Creel. I'm not gonna shout. Hello and good morning.
Good morning, Bez. How are you?
I am at this moment, ignoring the wider picture with you here and seeing Alex and Nicholas in chat. I am happy. I'm going to go with that. And just focusing on the moment and the joy of the moment, I'm going to say hello to Alex Aquasulis in chat. Lovely to see you. Hello, Nicholas. Lovely to see you. And I am Bez. We are another episode of Bezzy Beats and Board Game Bladder. Man, I don't remember whether it was Xates or me who came up with this, but I'm loving this new title. Let's pretend that this is what it's always been. And today we are getting to know Tiz. So I think I've had you on this show twice before. Once where we talked about the nature of art, and people can go back and watch that. So I think it was in the first 100 episodes. And then once where we talked about how we got started with Seize the Power. And I'm not going to say that we can't talk about art or we can't talk about Seize the Power because those are big things. But this is, I wanted to take a step back and say, hey, Tiz, let's just explore everything about you. Let's talk about your childhood, about your first memories, about how you got into art, about how you got into games, and yeah, who you are, basically. And so if you have, yeah. And hello, Rita Modal, it's lovely to see you. And hello, Xate and Timmy. Oh, lovely. All the best people. And so, yeah, why did you agree to come on? And that's my first question. And my second question is, if you were to give a 30-second preview of the topic to describe yourself, how would you do that?
Wow. Okay. So the reason why I came today to speak to you is because it's always very enjoyable and it's always very nice. It's a good way to start the day as well, and to be a bit fresh up with a good live conversation. And then how the second question was, how did I describe my life in a few words? That's a good question. Let me sit on that one for a little bit.
Okay, let me say, if you had to sum up, okay, we'll get into the questionably quick questions in a wee bit, but let's start off with recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. So if you're in the chat, if you're in the chats over there, then please let us know, what were your recent highlights? What have you done recently? I've heard that someone has been able to go out for a walk every day this morning, and I think it was So Crafty so-and-so suggested that in my Discord we have a channel for accountability buddies, and there's one of my things that I didn't do, but even so, like brushing my teeth, having basically no sugar, all these things, I feel good about it. And so, yeah, and the other recent highlights, I went for a walk again this morning, and that's a thing that I plan to continue. We'll see how long it continues, at least while I'm up in Glasgow. But
your hair looks different today.
Yeah, I'm wearing it down.
But it looks a bit like a bit more straight, I think.
Well, I'm not going to go into my washing routine because I've not washed it for some number of days, but I didn't do anything special to it. But yeah, Timmy got a new TV today. Congratulations. Nah, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to say, you know, sugar is like, it's like sugar, salt, cocaine. These are bad white powders. And so, like, I'm not saying that they're all as bad as each other necessarily. And certainly if you've got actually low blood pressure, then it might even be good to have, you might even want more salt. But hey, let's all try and... But let's get into recent highlights from Tiz. Tiz, what's been going on with you?
Talking about food, I recently started a diet, like a formal diet with a dietitian. I just felt like my energy levels were very low, and I was gaining a lot of weight since the lockdown started, as probably many people. But I thought I needed kind of like a proper routine and a proper healthy habits. So I've been doing pretty good on that sense. I feel much better now. I was eating a lot of frozen food and stuff like that. That's what happened. And I feel much better now. And I've been probably like 2 or 3 weeks eating very healthy. And yeah, I'm very excited about that. I completely forgot about it now that you mentioned the sugar, but yeah, that's something very relevant. I'm also gonna move out of my flat on Wednesday, which is nice. It's nice because we're going to a new flat that it's a bit it's smaller, but it has a balcony, and I never had that, so very excited. And I guess that's it for now. I have an exhibition today. Online kind of exhibition. It's a bunch of artists. We all did like a homepage, nice. like it used to back in the day when the internet started. That kind of was like raw, a bit sketchy. Like if you go to one of those web pages today, you probably will find them a bit sketchy. And yeah, just like a new thing when the internet was new. So we just decided to do a bunch of home pages, and the project is called the Art Homepage. It's a new project. It's the first edition. So we'll see how it goes. I'll share the link later on.
That sounds really cool. So yeah, we can also share it now. It's up to you. Just
for sure.
Sorry, I'm not going to flash up that chat. But yeah, let me actually quickly share my screen for a couple of photos that I took while I was walking around. So this is some things that I saw this morning. It's like just life springing forth, and especially the first one, I don't think I'd seen these leaves before, and this is a bit that I pass by every maybe twice a week, and so it might have just been that I hadn't observed them, because you aren't going to necessarily see every single leaf. But going out, and I've got this thing in my mind where I try to take some sorts of theme of series of pictures, but yeah, it's just really lovely to see life springing up. And spring starting. What else? Oh yeah, we also played a couple of episodes of My City. So I want to say, if you've not played My City, then look away from the screen for a couple of minutes until I say that I'm no longer talking about it. We are on episode 4, and the family's kind of still talking about trying to wrap their heads around the notion of a legacy game. I've still won most of the games, but thanks to the negative feedback loop, it's definitely becoming more challenging. And I won this game by the game 5 by 1 point. It's just great fun. And game 5, we started off with all the really awkward buildings. There's still more and more coming out. Some of the family is still struggling a wee bit with the basic notion of, hey, remember, you need to have buildings touching other things from the sides, and just still getting one of my parents saying, oh, this game, it's not as good as Rummy, is it? And that's like always the thing, like whatever we play, like Rummy's their favorite game. But no, the other thing I want to say, and there I will remove that so you can look back at the screen now. In My City, it's just joyous. I mean, polynomial games, if you've not played one before, it's just so much fun putting these bits together, whether it's patchwork, whether it's whatever it is. And because My City, it doesn't have the neat square backgrounds, kind of getting to know, okay, these are the way the L's go, these are the way the squigglies go. There's a real joy in it, and because of the river that you've got to take account for, and the mountains that you need to take, and the forest on the side. I always find after a game, everyone's kind of tinkering with their pieces. And sorry, I'm going to mute you just if you're not talking while you're pushing your chair forwards and backwards. It's really loud. But if you've not played a polynomial game before, then check it out because it's just so much fun. And I think it's definitely a good start to what will hopefully be a great campaign. So we have plants in Glasgow, yes, and in the room, yes. Got a plant there, which reminds me I need to water it. We only have snow here. Well, here it is not quite as cold as Nova Scotia. Hello, J Foolsguard. It's lovely to see you. And of course, if you are part of the Loserpalooza, you can play My City. Can people jump in if they want to halfway through, or does that not really work? I guess you could sort of maybe just copy someone else's board, I guess, and pretend that you've done like second best for everything or whatever. But great game. And Tiz, does anyone else have any more recent events highlights, Tiz?
I don't know. I think I'm good for now, but if something comes up, I'll for sure intervene and say I have a news flash of a highlight that I forgot.
I mean, you can do that anytime. Today is your day. We're just here to talk about you. And if you want to check out Loserpalooza and play it, and you don't mind skipping the surprises of the first 4 episodes and you want to check that out, then there is a catch-up sheet. So, yeah. Now, let me move on to brilliant things. Brilliant things. What's the little thing which is brilliant? Brilliant thing. So, do you have a thing that says brilliant, Tiz?
Yes, I have a thing that is brilliant. I really enjoy that the sun has come out in London for just a little bit almost every day. Not today though, but I've been enjoying it so much because I came back from Mexico. I'm from Mexico, for those who don't know, and the sun is shining almost every day. I was there in the beach and so on and so forth. And then I came back to the UK and I didn't saw the sun for like 2 weeks. And I was looking for it. It was just or rainy or covered by the clouds or whatnot. So I think it's been improving a lot, and tapping on what you said earlier about the plants starting to blossom and the spring is starting to come. I am really looking forward for it. I'm very, very excited for that. And yeah, I mean, I can't wait. And I am also seeing the same exact plants that you found that you thought they were not there. I saw them walking last weekend that I went with a friend for a walk. And yeah, they look like flowers or something like that. I'm not sure what they are.
I think daffodils, maybe, but
I'm not sure.
Yeah, apparently in Nova Scotia, spring will start in May, and they're having a snowstorm on Tuesday. So,
oh no, I'm sorry.
Lots of love to those people who are living in. I mean, at least you've got some new TV, and hopefully you've got other things to.
You can play the on in the TV and then pretend that it's full on every day.
But whether it's around right now or coming up, let's just remember the sun. And yeah, hopefully if you can't have it right now, I mean, I know for some people it's in the middle of summer if you're based in New Zealand or Australia, and over there I don't think you've got a shortage of sun any time of year. Whereas, you know, if you're on like Singapore, it's like, what are these so-called seasons that you speak of? But
in Mexico City, there almost no seasons. The weather does change a bit. It gets a bit colder in the winter, but you basically wear the same clothes. Maybe you throw a sweater on or something like that, or a jacket on, but it doesn't really change that much.
Wow. Apparently the River Main is at risk of overflowing. That's and some people just have no idea what snow is. I mean, obviously Alex knows what snow is, just as in hasn't seen any this in the past year.
There was a snow day here in London a few days ago, last week or this week. No, this week. Sorry, last week. Sorry, we confused this quarantine situation. And it snowed in London for like a few hours. It was completely white. Very beautiful.
Nice. Wow. So snow actually sat in the center of London.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know in the center, but I live in the southeast London, and it was white completely.
Yeah, I've not been to your place. Now, you don't need to give us the exact postcode. I'm not asking for that, but if you are willing to share with the internet the approximate area that you live in, let's move on to questionably quick questions. So I am going to say that where, in as much or as little detail as you'd like, where are you and what time is it? I am in Glasgow, 3rd story floor. It is 10:18. What about you, Tiz?
I am in Deptford, South London, right across the river.
South. That's like 10 miles south, pretty much.
Yeah, it is south. It's not so far from London Bridge, but from the center, it is quite a bit more. I am in the 1st floor, in a flat, and right now is 10:19.
Okay, and apparently, yep, we've got. So the next, and it says 6:20 a.m. in Nova Scotia. I've never heard this. I'm learning all the slang terms. In the Scosh, yeah, that's what all the cool kids say apparently. And this is we try. So, Tiz, are you a fan of hats? That's my first questionably quick questions.
A what?
A fan of hats. Do you like hats? Do you wear
Oh,
hats
yes.
often? Do you wear hats all the time? Do you wear hats every day?
Yeah, I would say that I do, mainly because my hair is always very messy, and it's a quick way to get it all together, especially in London. And I mentioned the weather a lot. Maybe I should stop, but it's very windy usually, and I have very long hair like you, Bez. So every time I go out, when I'm going somewhere, my hair always arrives a mess because of the wind and because of the hazards of the London streets. So I started using more hats and stuff like that to at least get this a little bit under control. I'm gonna show you. Well, right now, because of the hats, it's not so bad, but I always get these little hairs that stand up, which I don't mind them too much, but a hat always fix any of those kind of things. I also like to have hats. I don't know. I like them. I like them a lot.
I just embrace the imperfections, and I had a couple of hats in my time, but every hat that I had, I would take it off when I was indoors, and then I'd forget to take it away with me.
Oh,
just
no.
away with me with hats. Okay,
that's the thing. If you have a hat, you have to always leave it on basically the entire day. It's kind of part of your outfit in a way. No, you don't have to, but I do leave it indoors. And yeah, I like hats very much. I actually have a lot of hats in Mexico. Here, maybe not so much, but I really like them. All types.
Hats on a string, so just dangling in front of you. I used to have a fancy hat. I used to have a really colorful shirt. I don't know what. Oh, darn. I think, yeah, I actually remember now. Someone actually ripped it. That was really annoying. I think one was going to sew it for me. I don't know if that's ever happened. But I had this beautiful shirt. It was pastel colors. It was yellow. It was pink. It was pastel blue. And it was all over. It was like Victorian people reading books together. It was just people reading books together all over. And if you didn't look at it, it looks like just, oh, what's going on? It's flowers or something if you saw it in a club. So this was like my shirt for going out clubbing. It was just so bright and joyous. And then I had a big hat. But then the hat, you know, when you're dancing, it becomes a bit too much to wear this big hat.
Well, yeah, that's also a very important thing, because you have to have a hat that you can wear all the time. It's not only an accessory, but it does have to be like comfortable. I like to have something in my head.
So, hello, Elaine. It's lovely to see you. And Elaine likes hats, but they don't really like Elaine very much. That's sad times. Yeah, I agree with this. How can anyone or anything not like Elaine? Hello, Pecky Boer. Are you French? It's lovely to have you, and it's so difficult to choose the perfect hats usually. But thank you for joining the stream. Sate says, I spent years refixing my hair, putting it up nice and tight. Corona started, I stopped caring. Then I started taking more selfies, and I noticed something. I look way better when my hair is a mess, says Sate. And I can totally relate to that. And Timmy just wears hoodies. That's all good.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Pecky Bu is Turkish. Sending much love from Istanbul. Hello. Just because I thought Bu is butter in French. Yeah, that's the language that I'm thinking of. But
I just want to say that I also like messy hair, and I enjoy having it myself. What I don't like is to have to deal with it later and brush it after it has some semi-rasta coming out of everywhere.
Let me ask you, what's your first ever memory? Do you remember? I mean, do you have a first memory? Like, I've got two memories that are like, okay, these two things I can remember very vividly. Do you have anything like that?
No, I wouldn't be able to say my very first memory, because I don't know. I think I lose track of the chronology of how things happen in my life, the more that I go back. That means that I don't know when things happen really. But I also have a not so good memory, so I wouldn't say. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of early memories, not necessarily, but yeah, I was kind of like a the typical lonely child, I guess, playing on its own, and my sister was always the star shining, and my brother was way older, so I kind of always was an introvert in a way. Not that I am an introvert necessarily, but I guess I there's a lot of me that goes or steers toward that. So yeah, um, yeah, I was very much into my own mind and my own things, and yeah.
And
And
so, yeah, do you think that do you prefer making art alone rather than collaborating?
no, I like them both. Either way, it's just very different experiences. Also, when you do art with a purpose, let's say that you want to do something specifically, or you're doing art uh, just because, so you just grab whatever you have at hand and put hands on and see what happens. So there's a lot of things and a lot of methodologies that could change the experience, but in reality it's just changing a bit the experience. What it is important is that you work with someone, that there's a sort of connection or a
Hmm.
vision, because usually when you work with someone else you have to plan a little bit, you have to think about what you're doing more, and I think it's a bit more structured. But no, I love it. I love to collaborate.
I
Anyone who
mean,
wants to
there's
collaborate, send me a message.
yeah, we're going to have yeah, it's going to be you, myself, and Rita Model on the show this time next week, right?
Hmm.
And so a quick hello to Rob Harper, who's also done a lot of collaboration recently. And I'm loving all the questions. Keep them coming, and I will go through all the questions until we run out of them. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on this collaboration thing because it feels to me that if you're collaborating with someone, you've got to be able to think aloud. Do you know what I mean? You've
Hmm.
got to be able to express a lot of thoughts with people. Would you agree?
Yes, and also you have to, in a way, compromise, and that doesn't mean necessarily like a bad thing or anything like that, but it's about understanding other people's visions and then trying to put them together in a way that it works and then it makes sense. So it's a bit you have to be a little bit more selfless in that way.
Hmm, for sure. I
Um,
mean, in a way, it's kind of like streaming. Like, if you're good at playing a game and then thinking aloud and talking through your
mhm,
thing, and in a way, when you're playtesting, ideally, what you want from a playtester, especially if they're doing maybe not in a multiplayer game, but my ideal solo playtester, uh, as in for a solo game, is someone who's going to be saying, okay, this is what I understand, I'm doing this, and I know Xates was brilliant at this to kind of speak aloud and talk through everything. Nick, I just want to mention this. Nicholas apparently has early memories that
hmm,
might have been things that happened when Nicholas was less than 1 year old. That is indeed amazing. And you never know, as Alex says, if your memories are real things or if it's constructions in your mind. So let's get to the audience questions, and please keep these questions coming. Do you know what this means? Tajin.
yes. Tahini is a spice, a dry spice. We use it a lot in Mexico on vegetables and fresh fruits. So it's adding basically chili, dry chili. It's very acid. It's really nice. I really like it. And dry is the classic. And I think I always would go for the dry for the vegetables and the fruit. The liquid, I don't think I have tried it. I've seen it a lot, but there's so many types of salsas and so many things to choose from that I don't think I have tried it, or at least not consciously. So I will go for the dry for now, but I'll try to get the liquid one, and then I can give you a proper answer to that.
Okay, so you're a traditionalist, is what I'm getting.
No, I'm definitely not a traditionalist, but in this, I don't really have tajin that much neither. I usually go for one that is called Miguelito, which is sweeter. It's actually like a candy in Mexico, but then they had this new packaging that make you feel okay to put it to fruits, but it's basically like a candy. It's sweet, but it has spice as well. So I probably would go for that one. Well, I don't want to think I'm a traditionalist, but in tajin,
let me ask a
say.
related question. What's your favorite chili?
I don't know.
Do you have a favorite chili? Am I stereotyping Mexican people?
Definitely. Nah. One of my favorite chilies would be, I think the classic is Serrano, is the one that we use the most in salsas, in green salsas in Mexico City specifically. One of my favorites that is very unique, it's the chile poblano. It's a huge, it's not spicy, it's a huge chile, and you usually stuff it and put things inside it, and it's really, really nice. It's very flavorful. And there's a bunch of dishes and other stuff that you can do with the poblano. It's called chile poblano. I think you can get it here. Poblano, yeah.
Poblano. Okay.
And I'll write it on the chat in a little bit. And then the dry version of that is actually a chipotle.
Oh yeah, so of course, I've had that.
So the curious thing about chiles, and this is just a curious fact in general, no? But there's the normal chile, and then there's the dry version of the chile. And the flavor changes significantly when you go to the dry version. I'll try to find a chart where they show you the fresh chili and the dry chili comparison, and you would never expect that those are related. It's kind of like a crazy thing how much it changes when it's dry.
Okay, next question. And Sate's been a big fan of this question recently. What is the sound of your favorite color?
I think in this time of the year, I would say that I'm looking into very deep blues, like obscure blues or dark blues, maybe with a little bit of greenish, maybe Prussian blue. And the sound of that, to me, it's kind of like the sound of the ocean, like maybe with some whales at the distance.
Nice.
I don't know, is that
the sound of ocean with whale songs? That is, wow. So,
what kind of blue? Prussian blue would be my first choice. Maybe navy as well.
Elaine wanted to ask, top bunk or bottom bunk?
Bottom. I like it more because it feels like a little cage. So it feels not like a cage in a bad sense. Okay, that was not the best analogy, but I don't know. I feel enclosed.
Okay, and I like that. You like being wrapped up tight. Do you like getting tucked in? Like, I don't know if anyone would like. Do you like it to really snuggle yourself up and wrap yourself and have a weight on top of you with blankets?
Yes, but for a certain amount of time, because then I move a lot and I change a lot positions. So it doesn't last very long, but I do like it, and I like to feel like sometimes pressured. And I like caves as well. When I was young, I used to build my own little caves with furniture and things like that. And I feel maybe it comes from that. Maybe the bunk bed thing comes from that. I do enjoy the top bed, but I don't know. I wouldn't go for it.
I'm just going to make you bigger. And Stream Elements is reminding me to do a wee bit of stretching, which other people, you can do stretching or not stretching. It is entirely your prerogative. And Xate commends you for your answer. Apparently, you have had the most natural and clear answer to this yet. And
Thank you.
Xate is saying, now, do the rest of you understand the question more? Okay, so I guess my answer was, yeah. Anyway, apparently Xate once had her dad put the bottom bunk on top of a top bunk to make a very tight cave bed. My mum said I had to take them down. She couldn't get to me. Wow, okay. And Alex's kids like hiding under the bed because it's so small and cozy. I'm actually having memories now. I used to read over there, just in the corner, so there's a piano, and I would almost be like hiding behind it. So if you go there, then it's almost like you've got this like three sides around you are surrounded because you've got the corner of the wall and then the piano here. So you've got three sides, and then I would put my back to the piano. I'm actually tempted to go do that later on, but there's a bunch of things in the way. Yeah, people are enjoying this. So what other questions have we got?
Can I say one more thing before we go to the next question?
Oh yeah, of course.
I also don't like in the top bed that when the light is on, you usually have it in your face. Whereas in the lower bunk, I think you get less of a light and also perhaps even less of a sound.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
less of a light, yeah.
If you're in the bottom bunk, it can feel like someone's clambering over you. That's my only issue with the... It feels like the top bunk, you've kind of got a wee bit more privacy in some ways. But, yeah. And then you're looking down at... If I'm at the youth hostel, whether it's with strangers or whether it's with a bunch of volunteers going to UK Games Expo, I would pick the top bunk personally.
Okay.
It's like, oh, I get to see. Yeah, it's quite nice. So let's go to favorite cheese.
I have many favorite cheeses. The one perhaps that I eat the most here in the UK is Edam, which is Dutch, I believe. Gouda. So those type of cheeses I like a lot, like yellow type of cheeses. But I mean, I love them all. I love goat cheese. The Mexican ones, there's one that is called Oaxaca. That it's like a string and it's all wrapped up, so it's like a little ball. It's white, and that's definitely one of my top favorite cheeses. But you don't get it here, so that's the point. But yeah, a good plate full of different types of cheeses is something that I usually enjoy. The ones that are very strong, like blue cheese or Roquefort. It might not be my favorite on their own. You love it?
Yeah, I love Roquefort. Yeah, I love a good strong cheese. I mean, what's up with these mild cheddars? Why bother with them? I mean, even medium, like go for the strong thing, for goodness sake. Just strong flavors. Why bother with...
I like the strong flavors, but the thing is that sometimes I feel like you have to use less of a quantity to actually make a good mix of flavors. Like if you put a biscuit and then the cheese and then maybe something on top of it, like a relish or something like that. But yeah, the only issue with the very strong cheeses for me is that I get very, I don't know the word for it in English, but there must be a word. I get tired of the flavor, or I get too much of the flavor very fast. So I just eat little bits.
And apparently you're making people really want Mexican food. And Xate might be making that for dinner tonight or lunch, I don't know. But Simi asks your opinion on Brie or Havarti. I'm a fan. I'm not sure I've had Havarti though.
Well, that's a good point because I think me neither. But brie or camembert, I really like them, especially if they're heated up.
Baked camembert.
Mm.
I slightly preferred camembert to brie. What's about you?
I like them both. Yeah, I don't have a preference. I'm happy with both like equally.
Okay. So, is there dippy camembert, says Elaine, and let me sit down. I feel like I've done sufficient stretching. You couldn't see, but I had my feet up to my stomach, so yeah. Baked camembert for lunch yesterday. So, Tiz, next question. What is your first memory of playing a board game?
I'm not sure. I remember I had this card game that I think it was similar to Memory, but it had I think a few more mechanics. I don't remember it so well, but when I was in Mexico last time, I was looking for it because I just had like a memory of this game, and I was like, oh, maybe I still have it, and I looked for it. I didn't found it, but I didn't look for it thoroughly in my mom's house. But it had very nice illustrations and it was very unique in many ways. And that's why I think I remember it. I don't think it was my first board game, to be honest, or my first tabletop. But
Sure,
yeah, I have
but
a very vivid
growing
memory.
up, what would you typically play as a child? And did you play a lot of structured board games?
Yeah, actually, not so much, to be honest. Not so much. It was never a thing in my family or in my group of friends. Everybody had certain board games in their house. Typical Jenga, Guess Who, all of those type of very simple, popular board games that are out there. Connect Four, maybe even Battleship, Clue, and those kind of games. And yeah, you can occasionally play them, but it was not really a thing at all in my upbringing. In fact, I started getting into board games more seriously just a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and now I have my mini collection. I can show it to you if you guys want. And I play a lot. Like that's one of my favorite activities to say, "Hey, come over and play," which is now not possible, but when it used to be. Uh, but yeah, it's funny how things worked out because I think in Mexico in general is not such a big hobby. I would say. I mean, obviously there's big groups of people who play board games or play role play. Um, Role playing games, but yeah, so no, I don't have like this game. I used to, at some point I bought Risk, and I used to play it a lot when I was about 14 years old. I used to go with a therapist at that time, and I used to take my game and play it with her because he was the only person who wanted to play with me that specific game.
So, yeah, Nicholas had a question about Loteria. Do you know this game?
Yeah, Loteria is a bingo style game, but with images, and it's super traditional Mexican type of game. There's many traditional type of game Mexican games, and that is definitely one of them. That's a classic, no? In all schools, you always play Loteria. Yeah, that's a given, and it's basically like a bingo with images.
So I guess it's teaching people to follow rules. It's teaching them to recognize the images, and so you play it in school at an early age.
Yeah, and it's very common. You can see it in many other scenarios, not only at school, but it's very common game.
Could you tell us about any other traditional Mexican games?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about it. What I think about the most when I think about traditional Mexican games is more about toys, wooden style toys. Maybe the designs are not necessarily Mexican, if I think about it, but there was, when I was growing up, uh, those kind of traditional toys were highly available and highly accessible. And then obviously when the globalization started to take place and all that, being so close to the US, we started getting all these new and crazy high tech by the time toys and things like that. So the traditional toys were displaced. If I think about board games per se, I wouldn't say there's any that I know of that is originally Mexican, not even in the modern times, but there must be something. I'm just not aware of that. But traditional Mexican board games, I don't really think there's one that I would say, because even La Loteria, it's actually a spin-off of Bingo.
Mm-mm. Would you have, like, French suited, what we might call traditional playing cards? 13 ranks, 4 suits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I really like one, but it's I don't think it's Mexican either, but I like one that is called Canasta,
Oh,
which
yeah,
is a
yeah,
long
yeah.
game. Yeah, and we play that a lot, especially in the context of the beach. Sitting around and playing card games is basically the best activity you can do.
And hello, Yoda. It's lovely to see you. That's Yoda. And Picky Burr asks, "What's your opinion on board games becoming digital?" I guess there's two angles to this. Whether it's Tabletopia or Tabletop Simulator, digital. I mean, also there's the board game arena. Then there's the apps, and also, of course, digital integration into board games. I mean, that is something we could definitely talk about for 2 hours, but in a little bit less time than 2 hours, what's your opinion?
Yeah, in a nutshell, my opinion is the same as yours. In a way, there's two sides of it, and what I do like is the accessibility of being able to play games with multiple people that are in different places. I think that there's a lot of value on that, on the ability that we have, the community has to adapt to that. But that being said, yeah, the in-person experience, especially for certain type of games, to me is quite necessary. Um,
Hmm.
but not for all the games. And I've been recently started playing some board games in my tablet, Carcassonne, and I have Catan, but I haven't played in a very long time. And I have Terraforming Mars, and I quite like them. I think that if you make it in a way that it works digitally and it's easier for the user and all that, then I don't see there's no problem with that. But when you do it on Tabletopia or in Tabletop Simulator, then there's many things. You're limited to make the full perfect experience for the user, and I think that's the challenge right there. But other than that, like if you plan to do a board game digitally, then I would recommend you do it from scratch, like these other
Mm-mm.
games that have done it, and it's very easy and very accessible and very intuitive. If you need to play test and you cannot meet out with people, using Tabletopia and using Tabletop Simulator is a great solution for that.
Now, a quick thank you to Xates for lurking and sticking around. And let me ask you again, we can delve into more questions, actually, you know what? I'm going to have a quick fire round of the questionably quick questions. And if you want to get anything in there, get it in the next minute. Otherwise, we're not even going to pretend that it's quick. And we can keep asking questions. But books or podcasts?
Podcasts.
Okay. Would you rather be a pigeon or a shark for a day?
Shark.
Which is the last podcast that you listened to, and how much did you like it?
I forgot the exact name of it, but it was like a hack and artist. So basically, artists in tech and learning about hacking and about those kind of activities. And it was quite nice. There's only 2 episodes, so there's not much to say at this stage. But yeah.
I mean, I guess you're less willing to throw your opinions out unsubstantiated than I am. I'm very ready to give my unsubstantiated opinions on things. But I wanted to ask, how often do you get out each day?
Once.
Okay. What was the last book you read?
The last book I read was in Spanish, and the book originally is not in Spanish. It's called La Gran Matanza de Gatos, which is the great killing of cats, perhaps, or something like that. Robert Dalton. And it's what is interesting about this book is that it talks about the folk stories that later on turn out to become the Disney movies that we all know. So the original Cinderella story, for example, the original Sleeping Beauty story. And it's really interesting because those stories are really dark and not stories that you would put in front of children. Of course, Disney did a good work in avoiding the darkness of these stories. But yeah, very dark stories.
Wow. Okay, so I'm sensing a theme. And Biolane, if you're still here, and Picky Burr, lovely to have you streaming every day at 10 a.m. UK time. Feel free to jump in as and when you want. Check stuffbybez.com/streams for the links. I wanted to ask about board games a wee bit. Firstly, what is the last board game that you've played?
The last board game that I played was Reef.
Oh, the one with the brightly colored tiles and you're putting them on the map. Okay. What are your top 3 games, or what are some of your favorite games?
It changes over time, I must say. But Reef is definitely on the top of my favorite games. I would say also, I think there's a theme here as well, as you were saying, because I also like Azul a lot right now. I'm learning Terraforming Mars slowly, but I'm enjoying it a lot, and I feel like once I get a full understanding on all the possibilities, I'm gonna enjoy it a lot. I also like a game that it's kind of like a party simple game that is called Concept. And I think it's really wonderful. Yeah, I would leave it there.
Okay, and have you can confirm how dark lots of those old stories are? I know, have you, you would expect Javier to also be able to speak Spanish. But let me ask the final question, which is, what is a typical day like for you recently? And I say recently, and when I started this show, I actually just meant in the past week, and then it became in the past month. And now, lockdown isn't even a recent thing. But yeah, within the past couple of months, what is a typical day like for you? Can you talk us through what it's like to spend a day in the life of Tiz Creel?
There's no typical day for me. I'm a freelancer, to say the least, and because I'm an artist and and I do a bunch of different things. So my schedule is significantly different. Sometimes I sleep very late and I wake up relatively late, and sometimes I sleep very early and I wake up relatively early. So from the starts, there's no habits there. I am trying to work on that. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's the healthiest way to go in life. But for now, my typical days are very unpredictable. I usually sit down uh, in the morning with a cup of coffee and check emails and do some admin work in general. Then, if the sun comes out, usually comes out midday, 12 onwards. So that's when I usually go out um, and play
Getting your
basketball.
exercise every day.
Yeah, either a
Wait, you
walk
play
or play basketball.
basketball?
Yeah,
As in with a group, or you mean just
no.
dribbling and shooting?
I have played with groups, but to be honest, I'm not that good because I've been inconsistent. Um, but as soon as I get a bit better, I'm gonna join. There's always people playing in the court that I go to. So, and they invite me, but I tell them no because I am not that good, and they're having a proper game, you know.
Hmm.
And usually I'm constrained with time because I have stuff to do, so I just go for like 40 minutes straight and come back and things like that. And they usually spend all the afternoon there, like Fridays and Thursdays and the weekends. But I play on my own, and occasionally, if someone wants to, someone comes and teach you some stuff, and then you interact. But that doesn't happen that much anymore since obviously the coronavirus arrived to our lives. Um, but it used to be much more social.
Okay,
Uh,
well, as we move forward, feel free to comment, ask questions from like follow. I'm going to just show a whole bunch of pictures from Tiz's Instagram. And, if they spark ups, we've already talked about this bouncy castle in our first
yeah.
episode and how it was all created. Um, I don't know if you've got anything new you want to say about it. Do you still miss the bouncy castle? Do you want to do a new one?
I want to do many new ones. I want to do multiple. But it's a very challenging project because there's a lot of things involved, and cost is the first one, the first
Hmm.
problematic. But if I could, I would definitely do many of them. I have some designs already made digitally of the next possible bouncy castle, but right now it's beyond the reality because it's not even practical to show the one that I have. Not even practical. It's not safe. It's not.
Yeah. Given the current situation with the pandemic and the fact that humans in close contacts can be a vector for
Yeah.
virus.
And it's made out of plastic, and it's not a good surface. You have to clean it on basically every person that goes in. It's not practical. So it's a piece that it has to be indefinitely suspended. But I'm gonna keep on doing some designs digitally, anyways, because I really want to do them eventually, even if no one gets to use them, because apparently coronavirus is something that is gonna stay for good. We're just gonna manage to control that. So yeah, we'll see how things play off in the future. I mean, I'm not really that concerned about that. I think it's gonna be like the flu. Um, it's just gonna be one more seasonal thing or something. I don't
Once
know.
we have a vaccine and that vaccine's been safely distributed, but I
Yeah.
I don't know, it feels problematic in so many ways. And
Yeah.
do you think that your Instagram is a reflection of you as a person?
Not fully, because I only show there the things that I want to show. This was a picture of a LARP that I did. The last big LARP that I did before. It was called JAL, Just a Little Loving. And it
Mm-mm.
was, for those who don't know, LARP is live action role play. So basically, you role play in reality, in a reality circumstance, not in front of a table imagining things, but in an actual setting with actual characters. And this is a really heartbreaking LARP. It's very intense. It's not for everyone. It's about the AIDS crisis in New York when it first occurred. Yeah, hold on.
And so, yeah, that sounds like definitely. I know that Tiz and I originally met, I believe, at the Smoke, and then we met again. I feel like we properly got to know each other at BG DevCon, which Rob mentioned. That would have been a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
When you say this reflects what you want to show, do you feel like you're always wearing a mask, or is it what you want to show for Instagram, if you see what I mean? Is there a difference in what you want to show in I mean, of course there is, but how would you describe the difference between what you want to show for Instagram, what you want to show to me at a playtest, or hanging out and cycling around London and maybe photographing things as we've done once, or on a podcast, like on a stream like this? What's the difference?
I think the Instagram is something that it's chosen. Is if I would put it in practical terms, I think it's a very small part of who I am. Yay!
It's BG DevCon 2019. There we go.
A long time ago. The reason why I say this, and it's curious because now there's a lot of pictures of me appearing and me doing things, but usually I just post about the things that I'm doing when it comes to art or art things or game things. So I say it's a very limited expression of who I am, just because there's so much more about me that I don't necessarily post. But the reason why I don't post it that much is because I consider this more like a portfolio of the creative things that I do and the things that I'm working on and stuff like that. I've been trying to make it more personal lately and all that, and I post a lot of stories where I'm just fooling around with filters in Instagram and stuff like that. But I think it's much more, and I think every single person is much more than their social media. In fact, because you're tailoring them anyways. You're choosing the picture that looks right. You're choosing and even if you're not making yourself look prettier or all those things, vain things that people usually associate with social media or the influencers and whatnot, you're still not letting through the entire self. You're filtering everything and the captions and all that. So I wouldn't say that's an accurate representation of the entire me.
Time, isn't the way that we filter ourselves a representation of ourselves? Like if I show on Twitter, okay, here's games that I've made. Okay, today on Twitter I showed my city. Okay, that's partially because it was sent to me. And today I'm showing off also we sprouts coming up, and that shows that that's a thing that I personally appreciate. And this shows what I value in some sense. It's kind of like, okay, by sharing it, you're saying that you value these things.
Yeah, I value them, and I think that I mean, I guess it's a bit of how you want to handle your platforms and what do you want them for as well. Oh, first game of Seize the Power.
Do you want to talk about this, because I think there's another picture of this later, but so for this is Tiz and I are collaborators on Seize the Power, co-designers, and yeah, you explained this because I've told this story at least twice now.
Yeah, this was the very first playtest that we had, so it was very nice, and I'm glad I shared. The thing is that I don't usually share many things about myself or the things that I'm doing, but of the works that I did in the past. And I think that's why I would say that is less of a representation of myself than, let's say, other social media. I don't use Facebook that much anymore, and I don't post there. But that used to be I guess, a better representation of myself, because it was all more aspects of myself than just the visual aspects that you can share here in Instagram. It's a bit complicated, really, because it's also who do you want to be, no? It's like, what are the best parts of you, and then you frame them in a way that it's also aspirational, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's not really that complicated, and it's just as simple as it is what it is.
I mean, it is what it is. Kind of seems like brushing the whole thing. Like, you can say, well, what do you think of global climate change? Oh, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is. Of course, anything is bleeping what it is. I mean, that's what's that word? Like, it's self-evident. I mean, oh, is this bad for you? Well, it is what it is. It's a way of evading the question. It's a way of contributing absolutely nothing to the conversation. And I think when people criticize other people for overthinking, what they're basically saying is, I can't be bothered doing the work to engage at this depth with you. And I don't like you going into this much depth. And because sure, I know Matt Fantastic and mentioned at some point on a card and board game designers Facebook thread of, if you play test too much, if you sand it all off, it can become, uninteresting. Sure, it's balanced, but it's interesting. But the thing is, if you add more data, you don't always need to act on that data. If you think about it, you don't need to act on it. The only time that overthinking is damaging is if that thinking itself is impacting your mood, or if that thinking itself is taking away time from other things. In which case, sure, you can't be thinking about things all the time. You actually need to make sure that you eat or you engage with the world around you, rather than just freezing up and thinking through everything. But in terms of, hey, you shouldn't be thinking so deeply about this, no, I disagree quite strongly. Sorry.
No, yes, of course, and I think it's. I mean, there's many books and there's many theories and researchers who study this thing about the online identity and the digital identity and everything that comes out of it. And I think it's really interesting. That's why I started the conversation saying, well, it's a representation. I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, you know what? It would be interesting to do. To show either my profile, your profile, whoever's profile, to someone that doesn't know you, of course, and then let them build a profile of you and see if it's accurate.
Like, what kind of person are you? What kinds of...
I mean, how does this person speak? What do they like to do? Like, try to go fill the gaps and just use the information that you have within the social media, and then fill the gaps yourself and see how accurate that could be. That could be an interesting exercise, and see how accurate actually social media represents a person, and then how much stereotypes we have in all of that is also to consider. But I can go on and on with this. I studied science of communication in Mexico as my BA originally, so there's a lot of these that I studied directly, especially when it comes to identity, and then how the information can be manipulated in the purpose of, for example, journalism, or manipulating in terms of person. And it is not with a bad intent necessarily when I talk about manipulation. It's just how do you frame the words. You have to choose the right words, depends on who you're talking to, and those kind of things. It's very interesting because at what point you're genuine, and at what point you are trying to achieve a goal, or it's a bit.
At what point does the mask? I mean, look, I think that curation is really important, and I'd be really interested to hear other people's thoughts on this, because personally, I think that I'm I mean, it's a bit weird, like, especially if you consider Twitch to be a represent parts of social media, which I would say, yeah, sure, YouTube and streaming is parts of that social media. And I would say that I share a lot. There are definitely a few things that I don't share with other people, which is mainly, personal identification stuff. And, if someone, yeah, I try not to have my exact address, or, and I
Yeah.
try not to show pictures of other people without checking in on them, if that's okay with them. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
as for and there's like definitely a line where I say, okay, this parts of my life, there are some parts that I don't share with everyone, but I feel like I am fairly open. And I think it definitely depends on everyone, but then curation isn't a bad thing, because, you don't go into, if you're, let's say I got a chance to go into a school and talk about games, and hey, kids, here's how you might make a game. Rory suggested that I do that and give away lots of Innerbind Juniors. And for sure, when we are able to do this, that would be a fun thing to do. Now, maybe if I'm talking to someone, if I have great anger, I might swear a wee bit. But there is a line of, and so there's going to be certain words, and I'm not going to say that, we are multifaceted, and whoever we're with, we only get to share a certain portion of ourselves. You don't go, I mean, if you're going out for a job interview, you want to kind of make sure that you're looking good. If you're meeting someone, you want to kind of make sure that you shower, and, wash your hair maybe. And no, that doesn't mean that you're being disingenuous or not genuine just because you're not going there exactly how you woke up that morning. You're,
Exactly.
all of these are parts of you, and those decisions that you've made, I think that curation that you've got, I think it does represent, okay, A, you're willing to make the effort, B, this is what you value, if you know what I mean.
Yes, of course. And I sometimes put images in my Instagram, and then I remove them because I don't like how it looks with the rest of them. I don't know. I mean, there's some very arbitrary decisions when it comes to my Instagram, really. I don't know. Sometimes I just change my mood or my persona in a way, not on purpose, but it's just like the time changes, and I feel differently about things that I felt more strongly before. And as you say, you have different masks that you wear every day. You don't speak the same way you speak to your mother that you speak to your friends. And yeah, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just it's a way that we adapt, and it's a way that we also respect the environments that we are on. Like if you go to your mother's house, you wanna. I mean, obviously this is not the case for everyone, no, but you might wanna. Yeah, I mean, respect the invitation to be in a household and all that, and I don't know. I mean, if you go to a different country, there's many things that you probably would need to do that you wouldn't do normally, or you wouldn't probably like to do normally, but you do it because it's out of respect, no, out of
and that reflects your willingness to learn about the environment, to put in the effort to do that work. Stream Elements reminds me to stretch back and front. But let's talk about your introduction to painting and to visual arts. Because do you think that is as big a part of your life as we're making out, or is it just one tiny aspect? Do you think this is your big lifelong passion, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why is because it's a world of infinite possibilities when it comes to drawing or painting. Whereas perhaps doing games, for example, has a bit more limitations, and you have to have the mechanics work, and you have to have a lot of frames. And when it comes to drawing, it's very easy, it's very therapeutic to me. how I started it is actually very similar. I always used to draw and do artistic things as a kid, but nothing very professional or anything like that. Just normal kid things. And then I started going to these therapies, the same one that I used to play games with. And every time I was there, if we were not playing Risk, I was drawing. Because it's a way that I relax, that I kind of like lower my hyperactivity levels down. So I used to draw a lot, and at some point she suggested that maybe I should take some formal classes and explore this further. And it was because of her that I joined. Well, I went with a master. That's how we call it, or the teacher. A painting teacher, a painter, and I used to go to his studio, and he teach me the basics and the fundamentals that I really needed to know, because the challenge of drawing is that, yes, it's a world of possibilities if you know how to do it, because
So
if you don't know how to
you were about 14.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. You were saying it's a world of possibilities. Please carry on. Sorry for interrupting.
It's a world of possibilities, but you also need to know how to draw. You need to know about proportions, about lights, about the forms and all that. Because if you imagine something in your head and then you're not able to translate that into paper, then there's no much to it than that. I mean, for the thought is worth, no? I always say, only with thinking about it, it's already existing. But if you want to share it, if you want to save it forever and whatnot, you need to be able to translate what's in your head into paper, and you need to learn how to do it. So I think that is the fundamentals, but it is quite significant in my professional career and in my personal life. In fact, when I used to be a student in the master's or in my BA or whatnot, I used to draw all the time while I was taking classes, because that helped me focus. I have a learning disability, and multiple, and it's really difficult for me to focus or to maintain the focus for a very long periods of time. So drawing was actually one of the most effective techniques that I discovered to be able to focus on what was going on. And the most funny part about this is that the teachers thought that I was not paying attention because I was drawing, and I was in fact paying more attention. So with some of them, it was like a battle for them to let me draw while I was in class. But well.
Yeah, it can be quite difficult when you've got to do something on the side, and something where, people quite often don't fully understand neurodivergent folk, and it can take things the wrong way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. I am dyslexic, and I discovered I was dyslexic until I was 17. Before that, I just couldn't read and write. And when you ask me about what I prefer, books or podcasts, I prefer podcasts because it's a bit easier for me. Reading is very, very difficult for me, but I love it. It's difficult. I need to be really on the zone of focusness to be able to go in a good pace. But yeah, I didn't discover that until I was 17, that I was dyslexic. And I spent all my life thinking that there was something wrong or something. There's very little understanding. And especially in Mexico at the time that I was growing up, I mean, this was almost unknown. But yeah, I'm happy that at least people are talking about it much more. And I'm in fact thinking about integrating this to my practice as an artist of the things that I talk about.
I mean, that is kind of crazy to realize these things so late.
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask a bit more about the therapy, because it sounds like there were some learning difficulties, and that's why the school recommended you to go. Was it Yeah, how does that feel?
Yeah, I mean, it was always a struggle. I feel bad for my parents, to be honest, because they're the ones who had to go through all of this. I was just kind of like doing what I was told in a way, like, oh, you'll go here, go there. But I was a kid, and as I mentioned in the beginning of the conversation, like I was very into my own mind, and so yeah, and up to date, I'm able to just stand there with no phone, no music, no nothing, and just sit somewhere, and my mind would be occupied with thoughts and with things. Um, and it's kind of like the gift and the curse of being born with all of these kind of things. I mean, I also had a lot of anxiety and depression. I still have it. It's just within me and the things that I have to live with. And I think, I mean, I'm okay um, with all of that. But yeah, at the time, I mean, to be honest, I don't know. I mean, I never was against it. I never was for it. It's not something that I like or dislike. It was just, okay, the things that I have to do in life. But I was a very problematic child. And that's why I say I feel for my parents because, yeah, I mean, the school called them every week because of something's wrong with me. Like either academically, I was not good enough, or I was just behaving really bad, which also was one of my dark stages in life. I used to be very I used to do a lot of pranks to teachers and rebel against coordinate uh, protests with my fellow colleagues and things like that in my school. So yeah, I think it developed badly when it came to it because I felt like I was never going to be good enough in a way. So it was my response was to act like a rebel or act like a like fuck the system kind of style. And that was me as well. And I've been having a lot of different stages of my life where I had very different personalities. I think the core of who I am is always been there, and that has never changed. But I think that the way that I approach life changes the more that I learn and the more that I understand why things happen and why things are the way they are, or more or less. But yeah,
So
a lot
do
of
you think
therapy when I was a kid.
do you think you're
Sorry.
still a rebel and wanting to stick a finger up and
I mean, yes, but in the not in a destructive, necessarily destructive way. It's just there's many things that I don't agree in the way that we live and operate in general as a society, the humankind. And because of that reason, yes, definitely. In fact, I'm fascinated by the case of Reddit and the Wall Street bets checkmating the Wall Street. Wall Street. I find that fascinating, and those kind of things really excite me. Like if I would have known, I would definitely have been on board with that as well. I think a lot of things need to change essentially, and putting the environment as the number one priority. A lot of things need to change, and if things are not changing, then you need to start doing things differently, because obviously the people who have been their entire lives in the commodity their entire lives, they're never gonna accept the change. And this is what's happening with the Reddit case, for example. Is very curious because the first thing that the hedge funds and the people that were affected start saying is that this is illegal, was a crime. And it was not illegal, it was not a crime. They did exactly what they were doing their entire existence. And they did something illegal because I mean, I'm not going to get too technical with this, but in fact, the ones who did something wrong was them and not their Redditors, and they just exposed them and made them lose billions of dollars, no? But I think that there is a value in the rebel approach of saying, you know what, I'm gonna do the things differently, and that might unbalance you. But you know what, that is the best way to go, because you're never gonna let it go anyways. So there's I mean, I'm not senseless, I wouldn't do something absolutely crazy, and I would never do something that I guess affects third parties or whatnot. But I do think that there's a value on rebelling against the system, at least occasionally.
And in a sense, genuine growth isn't always easy, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And a quick thanks, Rob, and everyone for lurking. But as I remember, okay, when I was in London, and my sibling, I was planning to come back to Glasgow. Now, my sibling really cajoled me, really made me feel uncomfortable, and put so much pressure on me to stay there, and said, if you leave Glasgow, I will lose, if you leave London, I will lose so much respect for you, and all these very strong words, and saying, stay here, I will help you find work. But it still felt like such a difficult task. And, a lot of it was me. Like, definitely my sibling was like a mentor, if you know what I mean, getting me to spend a few hours each day, not an insane amount, just like saying, okay, this is a lot of work. It's more, because acknowledging, looking for work is more difficult than just working. Do you know what I mean? And so, because you're not just doing the same things as usual. So I was like, okay, starts off maybe at 10 o'clock, do like 3 hours solid stuff, and then that's you for the day. And I did do a little bit of help around the house, like cleaning and stuff, to pay my way, if you know what I mean, because I was staying there, just sleeping in the living room. But even so, anyway, the point is that after that, I was working at a couple of crummy places, and I'm not going to say every time you're going through hardship, it's necessarily better, but certainly I came out, I feel like, sometimes you need someone to say, hey, I'm going to challenge you. This is not cool. And sometimes you need to go for surgery in order to become healthier. And it's the same here. Like, sometimes we need to improve as a society, and that improvement isn't going to be a comfortable, easy process. Like, even growing as individuals, we need to be willing to examine ourselves. We need to admit sometimes wrongdoing, whether it's, in terms of our own xenophobias, our own failings as human, and like our own contributions to the problems that exist, and acknowledging these failings within ourselves. I'm not saying that we then need to start beating up ourselves, and I certainly don't think that it's appropriate for other people to then be beating up on us. But yeah, I kind of agree with you that it's worth challenging these things and doing these difficult things.
I like what you said, that change is not going to be comfortable, because it is not. And it's not being comfortable. Like this change that we had to do because of the virus, it really broke a lot of people. And it's still a struggle a year after it occurred, and we're still struggling as individuals to adapt. Maybe we're struggling because we thought that we will be out by this stage, and so it happens that we're not. So it was always temporary, I guess, in most of our heads. But yeah, I mean, as you said, change is never going to be comfortable. It's never going to be easy. But you know what? It has to be done, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. I also like the cleverness of certain actions that people do against the system, and when they work out, it's really wonderful to watch. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how we're going to pull this one off, to be honest. It's not the coronavirus one, but for example, the environment one, there's a lot of social crises right now. I mean, clearly there's something really rotten inside, from the inside. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, a few folks said that. Yeah, lots of measures are being taken not to save people or even to save, but it's to save this whole inequality, to save like this capitalist system, which maybe should that even exist. Like, anyway, I don't want to get into another rant about UBI, but what are some of your favorite things that are not like? Are you interested in electronics?
I am very interested, but it's very difficult. It's definitely out of my league in the sense that I have a lot to learn to do it. But I find it really, really interesting, and there's a sea of possibilities when you start learning these kind of things. The reason why I'm saying that not so much right now, because I dig myself into a lot of different things, and sometimes I need to cut myself in the detain myself of going into other more different things. Because there's a lot of learning curves in everything I do, and it takes a while, and then I finally learned how to do something, and then I stop doing it because I'm doing something else, and then I forget about it, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, just recently I decided I need to be more consistent, and I chose not to get really in depth with electronics and focus more on the software part of life, on coding basically. In terms of that, no, because I'm also into board games and doing board games, and I'm also doing art as plastic arts or as playful arts, and plastic arts I meant visual arts. So yeah, I already have my head dig into many different things, but I always enjoy it, and if I pair up with someone that knows how to do it, I'm happy to work it out, and I'm happy to make it. I understand the language that is usually used in this to do electronics in terms of how you program things. Connecting the wires is something that is very confusing to me, like why here yes, here no, and it's very yeah, it's very new for me.
I find it's really interesting how people can be so visually orientated and multifaceted. I mean, I draw, and I actually went to a programming course, but I just despise programming. I loathe it. And it's, for me, I mean, do you feel like, but at the same time, I'm really grateful that I can understand it, that I've gone through that process of finding out about things. Do you feel like you want to constantly be understanding things? Do you feel like your mind works in a logical way? Do you feel like you want to constantly be learning?
Yes, for sure. And the reason why is because like drawing is a world full of possibilities. In fact, you can draw with programming. And I think I also like programming where it works, when it doesn't work. And because I'm not that good, because doing a lot of things make you forcefully not be so good at anything, I can spend sometimes hours trying to solve a problem that it was an easy fix, but because I don't know and all that. But I find it super entertaining. I think it's very creative. I think that it's deceiving, the fact that it's full of formulas and it's its own language and all those mathematical things that could occur, not necessarily, but could occur in very high levels of backend programming. But I think it's super, super creative how you sort the problems and how you put them. I don't know. I mean, I like the logic. I like it a lot. I don't think I'm good at it. And the reason being probably because I'm dyslexic and I have problems focusing. But I really enjoy it a lot. I think it could be very entertaining. I think also you have to choose the right languages and the right things to start for you to do what you want to do, because you can do many things with programming, and that's one of the big points. Like, where are you going to start? So there's a one, for example, it's called P5JS. Is from JavaScript, which is one of the most popular languages, but it's all about making artistic things. And so you start already doing visually very complex things with very little code, and you start seeing immediate results because you're doing it in an artistic realm, if you must, instead of doing, I don't know, calculations of databases and machine learning and all those things that are very complicated, and that if you dig right into that, you might have some difficulties, or at least some bigger learning curves, that if you start with something much more less demanding and you get results really quickly, really fast, and very easily. That's what I'm saying. So then you get motivated and you want to learn more, and it's also that.
It reminds me of Flash, which unfortunately it's pretty much gone away. And Flash 5 was such a big deal to be able to draw something, and then you have some code that it's moving around, you've got proper coding going on. And then Flash MX, I think Flash MX 2004 was slightly better, but then when it got to Flash 8, then they actually removed a lot of the old functionality, if you know what I mean. So you couldn't use the simplest action scripts. Now they were really pushing people to make it more technical, ActionScript 3.0. And I think that sometimes, sure, it's easy to reminisce about the past, but at the time I was like, yeah, I'm going to stick with the old one until like the old one was no longer supported by the computers. And that for me happened a long time before the official Flash has gone away. And for me, that was almost like the decline of it, making it less open to people who are less technical, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things in the history of Flash and what happened to Flash that I'm not really sure. I wouldn't be able to tell you, but yeah, it's definitely a technology that was not up to the times. Eventually, when it started, of course, it was the biggest thing, but it never, I think, reinvented it itself properly. But yeah.
I mean, it's weird. I don't think that it necessarily had to, but like, you know, with these corporations, it's all about constant growth and putting in. I mean, that's kind of a problem, because it seems like it should be enough at a certain point to say, hey, you're doing really well, let's stop here and let's not bother going any further. Do you know what I mean? Okay, we're selling, if you're selling, let's say you've got these games and you're selling 50,000 copies per year, you know, you don't need to then say, okay, next year we need to sell 60,000 copies. Maybe that's what it is. Sure, you need to reach out to more people, keep it going, but you don't need to be like, let's do bigger, better. And I understand that people enjoy growth. It's nice to see rising numbers, but sometimes it's just, this is good enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess the main issue is that everything's changes over time. So computers change, and because the physical computer change, then you have to change everything that's inside it as well. And then you have more capacity in a computer than you used to have 10 years ago in a new computer today. So I think it's almost like the natural way of things when it comes to the internet and the digital developments. And I think it has to do with that. That's why they need to change. Of course, we can just commit to say, we're going to use this model of computers for the next 10 years. And in that case, then you would be able to control it. But then you would be limited, because now, for example, you have new things that you can integrate or you can do in your computer that you couldn't do before. And this is useful because of X, Y, and Z for certain industries or for certain particular things. I don't know. I mean, there's good things and bad things that come out of it. But yeah, definitely. Sometimes I wish certain things remain as they were originally. I don't know, certain web pages or certain social media or whatnot. And I also like the naivety or the novelty of the internet back in the day in 2000s, early 2000s, where people were creating their own websites and making random stuff in the internet more freely. That now that everything aesthetically, to me, it looks more or less the same. So the brands and the big names in the internet have pushed a certain aesthetic, a certain specific aesthetic, that it's purposeful because it's useful. It is more intuitive. It makes things easier. You do less clicks in general to do a certain action. So it has a design purpose to it. So it's not only simplifying because of simplifying. But there's a lot of identity that gets lost within all of that. If you see the logos and the materials of certain brands and how they changed over time, you can see how they're simplifying it, making it look more rounded up and all that. So you lose a bit of identity of these personal pages that people used to do back in the day, or the MySpace, for example, that was completely costumed by people.
Also, I remember, like, on MySpace, someone, you know, took a picture. I can't remember what picture it was. I used to have a website with lots of drawings that I'd done, and then, you know, someone just grabbing one of these pictures, and in a sense, I was like, wow, I'm big enough for someone to do that, but, you know, clearly that's not cool. They hadn't linked to it. They hadn't mentioned my name, and it's like, wow, people take this, and you know, it's sad that you know, when you've got even a game like, I remember Scares, so I made this old game. I don't know if it will still be playable, and it's very primitive now, but if you go to Scares DX, that's basically just moving the mouse around, the purple things you need to touch, the red things you don't touch. That's the game. And then, like, a month or so later, everyone was on all the Flash websites. They'd taken it, like, for the original Scares, and that's why and I think on Scares DX, I actually had a thing saying, okay, I'm actually going to update the file on this website, and if you say that you've played through to the end and you do a certain achievement, I think you need to play the entire game perfectly without making a single mistake, and then you get, like, a secret code that you can email to an email address that I no longer have access to. And if you did that, the idea would be that I would update it, and then I realized after a while, oh, well, I can't even update it because it's on all these other websites, and it's so many years that I hope no one would actually expect. But it's kind of weird, that whole Wild West thing, everyone stealing and everyone taking. I mean, I see your question, Javier. I'm going to get to it in just a minute, but I want to ask, what's your opinion on people taking your images, using them in things? I'm saying, have you ever had that happen?
To myself, no, but I have had friends who got their identity stolen in the internet. I mean, it's a bit of a tricky one. To be honest, I am an open source advocate. I feel that the cultural products of any society should be free for all to have access to. That counting research papers, movies, music. I mean, I think that should be free, ideally, obviously, in a world where that could be possible and that could happen. I don't see how, but in my utopia, or at least what I wish for the world, is I wish people would have access to all the information and everything for free, because I don't know, why would you?
But then if you're showing the image on the background of your own website, shouldn't you have to give credits at
Yeah,
least?
yeah. Well, credit is a different thing, and definitely, I think when you use the content of someone else, you have to credit. That's just the way to go. Especially not claim it that is yours. No, but that's kind
Like
of
if you
like
claim that it's yours, that's like the ultimate crime. But
yeah,
I'm talking more about maybe
a
kids who
simple
are
reference.
so silly or thoughtless that they just put that as a repeating image on their MySpace. Or indeed, in my case with that Flash game, it was, all these websites who were saying, okay, just lifting it from Newgrounds where I'd put it and then putting it onto their own websites. And so later on, you can add code to it so that the code stops it working if the website isn't the correct place, but then people can hack it and change it. And then, anyway,
Yeah.
sorry.
It's a bit of a tricky question for me, to be honest, because I am I am for the open source movement, and I think that has done wonderful things. For instance, that the fact that we have the vaccine so fast, it was simply because the genome of the virus was open source. That being said, this is not the world that we live in, the world that I just described as ideal and what I wish for the world. And unfortunately, creators and creatives and artists are people who usually are on the bottom of the pyramids, meaning that we don't get almost any income, or it's very difficult to make a living and coexist in this world, in this competing world, as a creator. So yeah, nowadays you have to give credit, and if you're hiring a creative to do a work for you or something, please pay them correctly and be sensitive, because it's not an easy life. Yeah,
So
definitely.
Javier says, with Creative Commons, you do Creative Commons by, which I think it's what I can't remember what by means, but NC, not no commercial use, SA share alike, and or even doing what or yeah. But the thing with Creative Commons is that the issue wasn't that you wanted to let people do a thing and then they weren't able to do it. I mean, I think it's great that now you can say, okay, I want to keep some of the rights, but not all of the rights. And I think that's a really good system to say, hey, let's have these Creative Commons. But I think that the problem from my perspective, if you're I don't know if Javier was, when Javier said, isn't this solved? I don't know if Javier was talking about my issues or your issues, but certainly my issues are because people were not respecting what was meant to be done in the first place. And just because Creative Commons says, hey, you can do this, and then, that doesn't mean that people are going to respect the Creative Commons.
Yeah, but you could take legal action if you don't respect the Creative Commons, which that's kind of what happens anyways. But there's a lot of brands that have been infamous because they stole designs and then put them on clothes as printing or patches or things like that, and then the original designers came out and say, hey, you're profiting millions out of my drawing that you stole. And that happens. And in that case, for example, it's very easy for you to win, especially when you're battling a big company and you don't have the resources. But there's cases that makes it easier when you have these the Creative Commons, or when you have some sort of copyright or licensing of some sort. Then it makes it easier for you to pursue legal action if that's what you wish to do. In the UK, I think it's a bit more, it's a bit different.
I absolutely agree with what Alex is saying. The sooner we detach value from financial gain, the better. because
Yeah, and that's exactly what
the
I'm
whole
saying, because I think there's a lot of value in the things that people are creating all the time, whether that's for science or for knowledge, or that's for creative explorations or culture or whatnot. And I think it's really unfair that it's not accessible to everyone. And if someone discovers something important and it's on a scientific paper that you have to subscribe for hundreds of pounds per month for the database for you to be able to read it, I mean, it's not the gatekeepers of culture and the gatekeepers of information and knowledge is not okay to me. It doesn't sound right. But it is as you say, as I say, it is what it is, unfortunately.
I mean, yeah, again, it's prosaic, and I understand your meaning there. What you're saying is that it's not a great situation, but we don't have
a choice.
As individuals, at least. I mean, it's possible that there might be something that we could do, and I'm keeping my ear out. If there is, if there was a safe protest for UBI, yeah, I'd be there. But the whole system is for sure messed up. Now I want to go into Javier's questions, what are the most underrated and overrated works of art you've come across? This is quite a deep question, but can you?
It's a difficult question, actually, because first of all, when I speak about underrated art, I wouldn't say I would choose one single thing or one single artist or one single work. What it bothers me the most in general is that I go out there and go to very small exhibitions and things like that, or just look through in the internet, and I find these really talented, amazing, innovative, unprecedented artists doing fascinating things and not being able to live out of that. And then you see these really sacred cows, if you must, of the art world, and you see what they're doing, and I mean, to me it doesn't make sense. So when out of this type of question, I wouldn't say, I mean, if you look at the most, like the Mona Lisa, for example, which is probably one of the most famous pieces of work, I mean, it is overrated. Even if it's a masterpiece, even if it was at the time one of the greatest compositions of all time, it is highly overrated. Highly overrated.
In what way? Overrated in a financial sense? Because I don't hear people saying, oh, Mona Lisa is my favorite art piece ever, or Mona Lisa is the best art piece ever. I never hear anyone saying that. Sure, it can be a symbol in Mr. Bean. Actually, that was Whistler's mother, wasn't it? But it can be a symbol of an expensive painting, and it's a cultural touchstone. It's something that people are aware of. But is there anyone actually saying Mona Lisa is the best? It's just maybe, I don't know, it's the most prominent. And is that really a rating?
It is a rating in the sense that because of that, it's valuable. The painting is not up for sale, so we don't know how much it costs. But if it would be, I'm pretty sure it would break all the charts in terms of painting sales. And there's paintings that have been sold for hundreds of millions and just crazy sums of amounts. And I am very sure that just for you to have the as almost like a luxury item of saying, oh, I have the Mona Lisa in my house, and most people that have a lot of money, first of all, most people that buy art are very, very, very wealthy people, because they're the ones who can afford it. Usually those people buy art as a means of appearance more than as a means of loving it. That doesn't mean that it's all the cases. Of course, there's people who really love art a lot and also are millionaires or multi-billionaires. millionaires or whatnot. So it's a bit tricky because the value of art in general, when it comes to money, when it comes to how much it costs, is always driven mainly by people who don't know much about art, because they're the ones who pay the check. So it's tricky, but that's the reason why I would say that if the Mona Lisa would be for sale one day, it would break all the charts because of that reason, and many other famous paintings as well. The reason why the Mona Lisa became so famous, I think it was because it was stolen, and there was a whole drama about that and how they found it and whatnot. But there's a reason why, and there's, I think, a few documentaries or articles that talk about why the Mona Lisa became so iconic. You're right that people don't say it's their favorite painting, but sometimes people that don't know much about art, if you ask them like, oh yes, what do you like? And they would say like Picasso, for example, which is a classic. And Picasso was a very it's a very important painter in the history of culture and the history of art, because he did something revolutionary at the time. But I think it's overrated in many ways. Yes, of course. Just because so much glory cannot be held in one single human being, just because of that. You know, it's not. There's this idea of the artist as a genius, and I think it's a bit. I don't know. I mean, I don't resonate with that. And I don't think artists are geniuses. And I think the character of the individual should be as important as what you create as well. Because of course Picasso was very misogynistic, and there was many things there to discuss about the character of a person as well. But no, I'm not going to go into that a lot. To make a short answer for the question that is already a very long answer, but to make it short, I think that when you go and visit a place or a borough or a different area, and you want to experience the culture, yes, go to the big museums and go to the obvious things, but try to find local galleries, local project spaces, and then you would see what really people are doing, and you will see a completely different world in those small places than if you go to the big places. And that's what I think it's overrated and underrated. Is who decides what is art and what is not? Who decides what is valuable and what is not? It's completely relative. So everything is underrated and everything is overrated at the same time.
Alex mentions already that whole market is messed up with everyone going into investments, which seems counter to what art is meant to be. And I was actually thinking Damien Hirst. But Alex's favorite story about Picasso is that he would always draw a little sketch on the back of his checks. It was more valuable for them to keep or sell the check than it was to cash it. Is that true?
I don't know, but it doesn't sound untrue to me. But I'm not, yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of myths and things going on around these legend artists, but it wouldn't surprise me. Maybe if he didn't do it all the time, I'm sure he did it at least once where, I don't know, yeah. Maybe he was low on budget.
So it's like, okay, hopefully this person won't, but yeah, wow, that is... But if you sell the check to someone, then presumably they could cash the check if they wanted, right?
Depends on which name.
Oh no, wait, the check is payable to a certain person, because I'm just thinking, if you... Yeah, and it also depends how much these checks were for. That's also a question. How much were these? But, okay, so... Javier also asked, which were the most surprising and the most disappointing museums you visited?
That's a good question. I'll go with the most surprising, because It was a very small museum, almost like 2 meters by 2 meters or something like that, hidden in the middle of Chinatown in New York. And I was walking around, and the museum was called Museum with double M's in each M of the word. And it was such a random stuff in a 2x2. One of the things was a collection of this cereal that it's made out of corn, popcorn. No, that is sweet.
Yeah, popcorn.
Yeah, it's popcorn, right? I got confused there. Anyways, there was a collection of those that were like very unique shapes, like they had shapes of a face or something like that. Then there was a collection of things that were confiscated in airports, thinking that they were like bombs or hazardous weapons of some sort, and it turned out that they were not. So something that looks very suspicious, but once they crack it open, it was not something harmful. I mean, just collections of really weird things. And then one shelf was like a acrylic cube with nothing inside, and it was air. And then they had this whole philosophical explanation of why air is being displayed in the museum. So such a random museum with really random objects, very small, in an alley, inside an alley, in the middle of Chinatown. Very sketchy situation, but it was really, really wonderful experience. And then you call a number in your phone, and then you put, I don't know, the numbers that they were displayed, and you can get an audio guide in your phone from all the things. So it was really, really, really fun and interesting museum to go, just because I never seen such a thing, such a weird gem as a museum, as a proper museum. And I think the one that I least like, I'm not sure. I think I have liked all of the museums I've been, because you always find something nice, and if they're like in a very bad state or in a very bad condition, that quirkiness might also be very nice. There's a museum in Mexico that is the Museum of the Toy, and I love it. And you go there and you feel like all of this stuff is falling in your face of how much things they have, and there's dust in the things inside the glass, and it's just like a complete mess of museum. And because of that reason, it's wonderful. And it's just amazing to go and experience it. At the top of my mind, I don't remember having a bad experience in a museum, because there's always something to learn, or there's a reason why there's a museum there. Even houses that are turned into museums or palaces and things like that. But yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I'm just thinking about the museums that I've been to. I've been definitely privileged. There's a lots of museums in the UK. I've been to a couple in France. I've been to the Louvre. I've seen, the Mona Lisa. But I've seen a wonderful exhibition with Hokusai, which I absolutely adored. It was, I want to say, not in Avignon. It was in a wee place that I can't remember the name of. It was somewhere near Cannes. It was within, let's say, 100 miles of Cannes for sure. And I was there on a day trip with some people who I know in France, and we were just going around. I was, oh my gosh, in this little city that we're on, there's like all these adverts on the roads that there's a big Hokusai exhibition, and that's amazing. Let's go and check it out. And so then going in and, seeing all this artwork and seeing these Japanese prints was just beautiful. And then I think that also with the museum, it depends, are they going to bring new stuff to it? Every time that I go into the Serpentine Gallery in Hyde Park, there's lovely surprises. And back in the day, by back in the day, I mean like a year ago or 2 years ago, back before times of isolation, I used to try and go there a few times a year so I'd see all the things. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to say I liked all of Yoko Ono's stuff, but I did actually like the maze of trying to make your way around things, and the whole cut where people are coming with the scissors. It certainly stuck with me. And then some of them, actually, the ones that don't stick with me, the ones that are disappointing, are the ones that you can't even remember. Because if something is that repugnant that you think, oh, this is a terrible art piece, or even this is a terrible game, at least that has expanded your world experience. You know what I mean? Like, if I were to play, I mean, I wouldn't, that's an extreme example. Like, if we were to play, let's say, a game of Monopoly, and then we were like, okay, we're going to play by the rules and we're going to go through it, and okay, maybe it takes 6 hours or whatever, and then we're trying to win, and then that's going to change your framework for everything. Like, if you've got a game that's so terrible that okay, this takes 4 hours, but at the end it's decided by a single die roll, or I mean, I'm not saying that I would go out and seek those experiences, especially if it's such a long thing, but certainly I think that when it's something as quick and it's easy to go into something like the Serpentine Gallery, even if it's disappointing, okay, the disappointing ones are the ones that don't speak to you. But if it's, oh, that's horrible, that's disgusting, at least that's expanding your worldview. Do you know what I mean? And that, in a way, is what art does, whether it's painting, whether it's, apparently, did you know that, I don't know what this is to do with anything, but apparently the 7th of February is National Wear Red Day in the US. What's in the UK? It's the 26th.
Oh, wow.
I will make sure that I wear some red on those days. I'll make sure. How about you, Tiz? Are you going to... No.
If I remember, I'll do it for sure. I'm very bad with national holidays in general. I forget about all of them. Even Mother's Day and the basic ones.
I wanted to make a calendar. If I ever make a calendar, which maybe one day I will, I don't know. I might actually, not a sexy calendar, but probably maybe it'll be like some tasteful shots. I know there was talk, like when I started up this show back when Xates was fancying Chris and all that, to have, but like maybe some tasteful shots, just like the dates, the names of the months, okay, spelt out with Veldet cards and I don't know, something. But let's say what I would do is put all the fun holidays in the calendar. So it's like Talk Like a Pirate Day, Guy for like all the fun holidays, like Wear Red Day. It's like every day should be, okay, here's a challenge, do this. Okay, here's well, speaking of which, and I am going to finish up this show. It's already run a little bit longer than I actually say, but Dina has started Card Game Week, I think it's called. So, but let's recap and wrap up and all that stuff. It has been lovely having you. We have had some nice conversations. We talked about sugar and healthy eating and my city, new televisions, not seeing the sun, how cold it is in certain places, early memories, collaborations, Tajín, Poblano. I'm still not sure how you write that. Cheese,
Poblano.
Poblano. Poblano. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Poblano. If I ever go to Mexico, I'm definitely going to check it out. Unless, if you go to Mexico at some point, would you be able to get some for me? I mean, would it survive an air trip? Because I would love it for that.
It will definitely survive the air trip. I don't know if it's going to survive customs. But I think you can get it here in the UK when it's season. Usually summer is the season, no?
Okay.
To keep it simple. I can let you know on that, because I'm searching for it, and I have found it, but the people who sell it told me that right now they don't have. They're gonna have it until it comes in season.
Hmm.
In Mexico, there's no seasons for poblano, so I don't know when the season is. We'll
So I'm
see.
laughing at something in the chat. That's I'll get to. But no, this sounds amazing. And then we talked about the stringy cheese. Talked about bots and bunks and being all wrapped up. We talked about playing Risk and Loteria and digital board games. And we talked for quite a while then about how we are represented by social media, whether social media is really a representation of us. And yeah, different people put different things into different social medias. We talked about how you got into paper and art at the age of 14. You talked quite a bit about your therapy, about your dyslexia and your learning difficulties. Thank you for being so open. That was only diagnosed when you were 17. We talked. Oh, I have a note for your friends that we saw. Fernanda Sardinota.
Sardaneta.
I need to improve my writing for names. My writing is such that it works for words that I've got an idea of, okay, the word shape. But for words that when I'm starting to write names of people, I think I should write it more clearly for myself. But yeah, we talked about
it's a difficult last name for English speakers because he has a lot of and it's a difficult Sardaneta.
Sardaneta.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we talked. What else did we talk about? We talked about finished up pretty much at that point by talking about overrated art and underrated art, having a talk about being a rebel and rebelling against the nature of, the system. And then we talked about overrated museums. I talked about kind of things expanding your stuff. We talked briefly about calendars, and then apparently I mentioned the fun holidays like Guy Fawkes. Woohoo! Burns and Traitors. I mean, yeah, it's weird because Guy Fawkes, it's so divorced from everything that it actually stands for. At this point, it's just let's have some fireworks and a big bonfire. I mean, for sure, one of these things that Rob mentions, Baked Alaska Day and National Freedom Day, as in freedom from slavery, one is more important than the other. But if I were to put one on the calendar, it would be National Freedom Day. And it's like, yeah, let's relish the fact, and also let's bear in mind the fact that slavery still actually exists in some countries. It is not abolished globally. I mean, just because something's the case in America or the UK, we can't be too, Western centric and say, okay, it's abolished everywhere. And, it's also sometimes happens legally. But let's, and I was wrapping up and yeah, I like this. But then I wrapped up, and if you want to check me out, I am, of course, stuffbybez.com. Stuffbybez.bigcartel.com. I'm probably going to take that off the list of things. Twitter.com/stuffbybez for all the tweets. Instagram.com/stuffbybez for some pictures. Twitch.tv/stuffbybez for daily streaming, 10 a.m. UK time every week. Every day, sorry. YouTube.com/stuffbybez for all the old episodes, and stuffbybez.com/discord. If you want to join in a game jam that's coming up, please check out the Discord. And there is, what else? Oh yeah, I wanted to say, if you want to check out Tiz, then you've already had the links. So where do you like to be found, Tiz?
Any of these are fine with me. And please feel free to contact me to ask me any questions. If there's something about this chat that was of your interest and you want a specific reference or link or whatnot, please feel free to ask. I am very open and happy to respond. There's certain mediums that I'm not so often logged in, like Twitter. But I eventually check them all and respond to all. The fastest, more reliable one would be email, I would say, or maybe Instagram. But please feel free to contact me anytime. I'm happy to have a chat, happy to have a discussion, to share ideas, share projects, whatnot. I'm very welcome.
And Nicholas says, gracias por el stream, Tiz y Bez. How's my pronunciation? How
Really
terrible.
good.
Oh, wow.
No, very good.
And I'm waving hi back to you, Jeroen. Now, I do want to say thank you, everyone. Of course, thank you, Tiz, for being a constant beacon of joy. And it's always a delight to spend time with you, whether we are, hanging out at BG DevCon or making games together or cycling around or talking on the show. It is a delight. And thank you so much for coming on. And also, everyone in chat, thank you for being awesome. And yeah, everyone, I don't want to name names, but yeah, everyone in the chat through the whole, even if you popped in and then you popped out, or you're watching this after the fact, thank you so much for watching. And if you have enjoyed it, then please let me know. If you've got any, even if it's like, hey, Tiz was cool, have Tiz back on, or whatever. If you're struggling for something to talk about, then let me ask you, what is your favorite piece of art? What is a painting or a picture that you like? What is something that you admire? And for me, I'm going to say Vasily Kandinsky. If someone asks me what's my favorite artist, I like Kandinsky. I like the energy in those paintings, and I like the fact that it's not got a little bit more anthropomorphization than Mondrian, for example. If you look at Mondrian, it's just, okay, here's very, it's very geometric. But Kandinsky, it's almost like you start to think of these shapes as being alive. Do you know what I mean? But
if you like reading Bez, I recommend you, I don't know how it's in English, but it's probably like Point and Line. It's a book by Kandinsky, and he talks about, you have it.
No, but
thank you so much. And hopefully I'll be back on quite soon, sooner than later.
And I just wanted to show this book that I've got by Henry Michaud. It's called Stroke by Stroke. It's just random bits, and it's got a bit of sometimes it's got a bit of text, but there's generally about 3 times as much drawings as there is text. I would say it's just kind of exploration. But you see, I see this, and I've not actually looked through the whole thing, but it's just a reminder to be playful. That's what I have. Yeah. And I will. So the book is called Point by Line.
Point and Line, maybe. Let me check it out really fast.
Point and Line, and this is a book by Kandinsky.
Mm-hmm.
I was unaware of this.
Point and Line to Plane. It's a theoric book, but I think you would find a lot of interest on that, because it's a lot of what you mentioned about the his style and the lines and the figures. So there's a lot of to decompose from that book.
You have, again, thank you so much, everyone. Now, for the final section, over to you. What are you up to? You can share anything you want to. And I am going to quickly give a shout out to Dina. So Dina, who I am having on Thursday, has been on several times in the past, making a new hashtag Cards Game Week. So Monday, if you want, use the hashtag Card Game Week on Instagram and share an older card game. And there is a whole thing, if you like, on Monday you're meant to do this, and then so forth. And yeah, that was just a quick shout out, but what are you up to, Tiz?
Well, I've been doing this work for the homepage exhibition that is online now. We shared the link, I think, earlier in this conversation. So I'm gonna check that out now and have some good food. I think I should go out. I don't think it's gonna get any better outside, so I'm just gonna go out and have a walk or do some movement, some exercise. So looking forward to that, and moving out and getting things settled down in my life, because right now everything is moving and it's very difficult to think about other things.
So I've decided that Monday is going to be nominally my day off this week. So I'm going to try and get a few things done on the computer between now and one, but like try and finish it all. I'm super excited that I've got a mentor, and I'm super excited that it's fantastic. And so I'm going to be chatting to them and reaching out to try and work out our first meeting and having a wee bit of a chat. And so, yeah, I'm genuinely, hyped for this. I've planned a phone chat with a friend around 1:30. Hopefully that'll go well. I'm going to be having a walk while we do this. I'm also going to be doing a lot of cleaning and tidying in the house. So, yeah, generally staying away from the computer and not even pretending like I'm going to do anything towards making a board game or anything like that, or social media. And yeah, that we might have some nice dinner tonight. It's like Monday, which means that one of my parents really loves Simpsons, and I enjoy The Simpsons as well. But I'm far more likely to watch it on a DVD or on on like computer or something than to go to the TV. But like this parents every day 6 o'clock will watch The Simpsons. It's kind of like their thing. So I was like, okay, you know what? 6 o'clock, I'm going to make 6 o'clock until like go to bed that time with parents, and so watch The Simpsons together, maybe have some time making dinner together, then play a game, eat, even if the game is rummy, but yeah. Oh, thank you very much. Glad you got that. Is fantastic. I enjoyed the pun. Glad you did get to mentor. Thank you very much, Rob. And I honestly don't know what is going to be my projects. I feel like Matt is probably more equipped in two of those things than a third. Rob is not going to be making Baked Alaska, but one of these days. Another chat with Alex, and also seeing if I can arrange a meeting with my new mentee. That sounds awesome. And Nicholas got a mentor for the tabletop mentorship program yesterday. Looking forward to meeting them probably this week. Awesome. So yeah, tabletop mentorship program, shouts out to them, doing amazing things. So good. And yeah, that is pretty much it. I don't... Toasted Montana. I wonder what that would even be. Is there
Yeah,
kind of
I have
cheese?
no idea.
Like, because instead of Alaska, it's another US state, and it is very much a pat-on, but is there like an American state that's a kind of cheese? Is Montana actually a kind of cheese? I don't know. But anyway, if you want to share anything, then please feel free to, and I hope that you all have some energy. I have ordered, I should say, a new... I moved the router up here yesterday. Well, actually, my sibling helped me with that. So hopefully the internet seems to be a lot better for me now because the router's right here. Also, I'm getting a wee adapter, which should be coming tomorrow or Thursday, so I'll be able to plug straight in. And then I'll try having my camera. But... by which I mean my phone. But it's been lovely to have you. I hate doing it, but I've got to say goodbye. For my next streams, look at stuffbybez.com/streams. Tomorrow we're starting off with some musical shenanigans in the morning. Then in the evening, we're going to try and work out who is the most like a pineapple. And then on Wednesday, we're going to be meeting Harley Truslov, co-author of Alba, and I'm excited to talk to them about the nature of writing a game book. We'll be meeting Dina again on Thursday, Friendly Friday Forum on Friday, and then Game Jam week kicks off in earnest. That is all that. Share, spread the word if any of this sounds interesting, if you think anyone else might be interested. And if you're what? Oh, fried Oregon, grilled Missouri, scalloped Nebraska, roasted Rhode Island, Florida surimi. Oh, this is ridiculous. You peeps. Okay, who are we going to raid? For those who don't know, who are watching it after the fact on Twitch, at the end we have a tradition where we decide who are we going to raid. There is Amadeus Music. Oh, there's Cat. Cat doesn't. Let's go raid Cat because, yeah, Maryland. Oh, I like it. So we are going to raid someone who's all about the crafting and making amazing things. I think it's either their birthday recently or it's about to be their birthday, but they also have a sale on their stuff. But yeah, that's where we're going to go. So feel free to copy paste some of the raid message. Do you have anything left to say at this point?
I hope you have a wonderful day. All of you enjoy. And also a great start of the week to everybody who's listening or plugging in at any time. And yeah, hopefully we'll meet again.
For now, the only thing left to say is bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Adios, adios, gracias por conversar along. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Adiós,
Bye-bye.
gracias.
Bye-bye.